She didn't take her clothes first. She didn't take the pictures off the wall or the stack of books she never actually finished. No, she took the couch. That cursed L-shaped, gray sectional I spent 3 weekends assembling with an Allen wrench while she watched TV and told me I was doing it the long way. That's how I knew it was real. That's how I knew she was gone. The room looked absurd. Bare walls, empty coffee table, one lone houseplant I forgot to water, and an imprint in the carpet where our life used to sit. She didn't leave a note. Not even a text. Just took the couch. Like it was her final statement. I sat on the floor for hours that day. Literally sat there on the flattened beige carpet like some hollowed-out action figure, staring at the spot where we used to sit and watch cooking shows together. Shows she didn't even like. She used to say, "Why are they always yelling about risotto?" And now I can't hear the word risotto without feeling nauseous. It's pathetic. I know. You don't need to tell me. But I miss the weight of her legs on mine. I miss the way she'd complain about the narrator's voice and then fall asleep sideways with her hands still inside a bag of kettle corn. Her name was Callie. Still is, I guess. And mine's Emory, which already sounds like a man who apologizes too much. Fitting. It's been 31 days since she walked out with the couch. And I've done a lot of thinking from the floor since then. At first, I thought maybe she was mad. Maybe we had a fight I somehow forgot to finish. But no. The more I thought about it, the more I realized she had been leaving long before her keys ever left the hook. Little things. Like the way she stopped saying "see you later" and started saying "take care." Or how she turned her head away when I reached for her hand in public. Like I was embarrassing. Or worse, invisible. But nothing stung as much as what she said before she took her final shower in this house. She stood in the doorway with wet hair and a look I can only describe as already gone. She glanced at the overflowing laundry basket I forgot to carry upstairs and said, "You know, you're kind of useless." That word landed on me like concrete. She said it the way you'd comment on the weather. Not with anger. Not with cruelty. With exhaustion. I remember blinking, waiting for her to say more. To say, I didn't mean that. Or laugh. Or cry. Or anything. Instead, she just said, "Don't text me for a while. I need space. Maybe forever." And then the next morning, the couch was gone. Since then, I've become a man I don't recognize. I rehearse conversations with ghosts. I microwave coffee and forget to drink it. I've memorized the cracks in the ceiling paint. And I keep rereading an old birthday card she once gave me that says, "To my favorite human, don't ever forget your worth." Ironic, huh? But here's where it gets strange. Last night, around 2 a.m., headlights appeared in my driveway. I live on a quiet street. Nobody shows up at 2 a.m. unless something's wrong. I pulled the blinds back, and it was her. Callie, sitting in the driver's seat, crying into her hands like the world just collapsed. She didn't knock. She didn't get out. She just sat there. I stood frozen, unsure whether to go out or hide behind the blinds like some scared raccoon. And then my phone lit up. One message. Just 6 words. "Emory, please. Can I come in?" Why now? After calling me useless. After leaving me like a receipt in an old coat pocket. After all this silence and wait. I haven't answered. Not yet. But part of me wants to. Part of me still remembers the sound of her breathing as she fell asleep beside me. And part of me is terrified that the couch wasn't the last thing she planned to take. I didn't move. I stood behind the curtain like a coward, watching her silhouette rock slightly in the driver's seat, head in her hands, shoulders trembling. My thumb hovered over my phone screen. I could have replied. I could have opened the door. But instead, I just watched her. Like someone trying to make sense of a ghost suddenly walking back into the house it once haunted. I waited for her to drive off. She didn't. Minutes passed. Then 20. Then more. I cracked the window an inch to hear if she was talking, if someone else was with her, if this was a setup or some cruel twist in whatever game she was playing. But it was just her and the soft hum of the engine. That car used to be mine. I gave it to her when her old one broke down. I told myself I was being generous. Truth was, I just wanted to be needed. Around 2:27 a.m., the engine cut. The lights went dark. That's when the real panic set in. Was she planning to come to the door? Sleep in the car? Was she drunk? Hurt? Was this guilt? Manipulation? A test? I stood at the front door for 10 whole minutes, hand on the knob, debating whether to open it. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I coughed. The sound must have startled her because a second later, she looked up. Right at me. Right at the tiny crack in the curtain where I was hiding. And she didn't smile. She just stared. Pale. Puffed face. eyes hollow. She looked nothing like the confident woman who once called me spineless because I asked if she wanted Thai or pizza. She looked small, human, like something had broken her, too. I finally opened the door. Slowly, quietly. I didn't say anything. I couldn't trust my voice. My mouth was dry and my legs felt like they didn't belong to me. She stepped out of the car and walked toward me like she was walking underwater, each step slow, unsure, like she was afraid I'd slam the door before she got there. And maybe part of me wanted to. But then I saw her up close, and it hit me. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel power. I just felt tired. Emory, she whispered. That was it. Just my name. But it felt like a needle pushed into a wound I'd spent a month trying to bandage. I didn't invite her in. I just stepped aside, and she entered like a stranger visiting the ruins of a home she once owned. She stood in the middle of the empty living room, the one she'd stripped of furniture, and stared at the floor like she was searching for a version of herself she'd left behind. I watched her fingers twitch as if trying to fold into a hug, but thinking better of it. I shouldn't have come here, she said, breaking the silence. Her voice cracked. But I didn't know where else to go. I wanted to ask a million things. Where she'd been. Why she left. Why now? Why she was crying in my driveway after tearing me down like a defective product. But all I could manage was, why did you say that? Why did you call me useless? She looked up then, and for a second, I thought I saw regret. Not the kind people fake when they get caught. The real kind. The kind that grows in silence. I didn't mean it like that, she said. I laughed. For the first time in weeks, I actually laughed. A bitter, tired, pathetic sound that barely resembled anything human. Then how did you mean it? I asked. Was there a different version of useless I missed in the dictionary? She blinked hard, like she was holding something in. I was angry. I was confused. I didn't know how to explain what I was feeling. Confused is forgetting a password, I said, louder than I meant to. Confused is not knowing whether you left the oven on. What you did was deliberate. You broke me and left. No warning. No explanation. You took the couch, Callie. That last sentence hung in the air like a ridiculous balloon. You took the couch. And somehow, that was the thing that cracked her open. She sank to the floor, right on the dented patch of carpet where it used to be. Her shoulders shook. Her breath came out in broken sobs. And I stood there, frozen, watching the same woman who once told me I was too emotional for a man, now melt into a puddle of raw grief on my living room floor. When she finally looked up again, mascara smeared, face blotchy, she said something I didn't expect. I left because I thought I could find better. Someone bolder. Someone louder. But he wasn't what I thought. And now I can't go back to that. And I don't know how to come back here. That's when the realization hit me. She didn't come back because she loved me. She came back because whatever she ran to had collapsed. And now I was plan B. That should have made the decision simple. That should have made me throw her out. But instead, I stood there, confused, heart twisted in every direction, wondering whether letting her sit there meant I was just as weak as she said I was, or whether it meant I still loved someone who didn't. She stayed on the floor. Not like someone planning to get back up soon, but like someone who was trying to sink into it. I didn't offer her a blanket or a pillow. Honestly, I didn't even move. I stood across from her, arms crossed, half out of rage, half just trying to keep myself from collapsing too. There was something surreal about watching the woman who once said I bored her cry into the same carpet she used to complain I never vacuumed properly. I asked again, this time quieter, who was he? She looked up slowly, like her body needed to catch up to the weight of her own answer. She wiped her face with her sleeve, still wearing that oversized flannel she took from my side of the closet before she left. She looked like a child who wandered too far into the woods. His name's Trent, she said, her voice scratchy. We met at that cycling class I told you about. I felt my spine go cold. I remembered that class. She joined it a month before she left. Said it was to help clear her head. Said it was good to get out of the house. I even encouraged her to go. I even drove her there a few times. That made me feel physically sick. Let me guess, I muttered. He's one of those motivational types? Veiny forearms, loud voice, teeth so white you need sunglasses. She didn't laugh. She didn't deny it. She just nodded. He made me feel like I could breathe again. At first, he was exciting, confident, said all the things I didn't know I needed to hear. And then, I asked, not sure why I even wanted to know. Maybe I needed to hear it from her mouth to believe it wasn't some nightmare my brain had cooked up. She looked away, and then he started telling me how I wasn't enough. That threw me hard. I blinked. What? He said I was too clingy. too emotional, that I talked like a wife, that I had soft energy. She laughed a little through her tears, but it wasn't joy. It was self-mockery. He said being with me felt like babysitting someone else's problem. For a second, I thought she was mocking me again, using my own words against me. But no, that was her quoting him. And it felt like some twisted echo chamber. She left me because I wasn't exciting enough, and now she was left behind because she reminded someone of me. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was emptier. She rubbed her forehead like it hurt to remember. He told me I wasn't worth the effort, that I was too slow, too quiet, and too familiar. Said he wanted adventure, that I should go figure myself out. And then he blocked me. I leaned against the wall, trying to process all of it. My knees were aching, but I didn't want to sit. I didn't want to mirror her. I didn't want to fall into that emotional sinkhole she had dug between us. And so you drove here, I said, more accusation than question. She nodded again. I didn't know where else to go. You always listened. You always held space for me, even when I didn't deserve it. There it was, the sentence that cracked me more than anything else. Because it was true. I had always held space for her, even when she ignored me, even when she diminished me, even when she left me. And now, somehow, she was crawling back through the wreckage like this house was her emergency exit. She stood up finally, slowly, her legs stiff like she hadn't used them in hours. She took a step toward me, then another. Her eyes locked onto mine with a look that might have once passed for intimacy, but now just felt like a desperate reach. I don't want to be alone tonight, she said softly. I don't know what kind of person that makes me, but my first thought wasn't even romantic. It wasn't pity, either. It was fear. Fear of what would happen if I let her back in, and fear of what would happen if I didn't. My hands trembled as I said, "You don't get to come back just because someone else rejected you." "I'm not asking to stay," she replied. "I just want to not be invisible. Not tonight." I hated how much that resonated with me, because that's exactly how she made me feel before she left. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked toward the kitchen. I made her tea. The same chamomile I used to buy in bulk for her before she said it was too herbal. I placed it on the counter without looking her in the eye. "I don't have the couch anymore," I said. "You'll have to take the floor." She nodded. She didn't complain. She didn't thank me. She just took the tea, curled up in the corner of the room where the couch used to be, and whispered, "I'm sorry, Emory, for everything." But the worst part? I almost believed her. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I lay in bed, staring up at the dim ceiling fan that spun like a slow clock, each rotation mocking the fact that time was passing but nothing was healing. Every creak in the house made my chest tighten. I could hear her breathing downstairs, shallow, irregular, like someone trying to stay quiet but failing. I wondered if she was crying again, or if maybe she was already asleep, dreaming peacefully while my stomach twisted in knots. Around 4:20 a.m., I gave up pretending. I crept downstairs, quietly, barefoot, pausing with each step like I was afraid I might catch her doing something I couldn't unsee. But when I reached the bottom, she wasn't asleep. She was sitting upright, tea mug in both hands, wide awake, eyes fixed on the dark television screen as if it might come to life and give her the answers she couldn't get from me. She looked up when she saw me. "Sorry," she whispered, like she'd done something wrong by being awake. "Did I wake you?" "No," I said. Sleep left on its own. We sat in silence for a few seconds, and then I asked what I had been trying not to ask all night. "What are you really doing here, Callie?" She didn't flinch. In fact, her shoulders dropped like she'd been waiting for that question all along. "I didn't tell you everything about Trent," she said slowly. Of course she didn't. That was our pattern. She always gave me half-truths and waited to see if I noticed the missing pieces. "What else?" I said, already bracing for the weight of whatever was coming. She stared down at the tea, as if trying to warm her hands on something that had long gone cold. "He's married." That hit me like a freight train, and yet, I didn't react. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. I just let the words settle like dust on top of everything else. "Wait," I said carefully. "You're telling me the guy you left me for was married the entire time?" She nodded, and her voice cracked as she said, "I didn't know at first. He told me he was separated. Said he was living in a guest house. That it was complicated." I believed him. "And when did you find out?" 2 weeks ago." "And you kept seeing him?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. She nodded again, slower this time. "I thought maybe he'd leave her. That's what he said. He said she was emotionally cold, controlling, that he didn't love her anymore." It was almost comical. The irony was so thick I could barely swallow. She left me because I was boring and too gentle, and ran straight into the arms of someone who lied to her with the exact same lines she probably used on me. And then, I pushed, though it already felt like picking at an open wound. He blocked me, all at once, changed his number, stopped showing up at the gym. It was like I never existed. A part of me wanted to scream. Another part of me wanted to laugh. But mostly, I just wanted to understand why she thought this was the moment I'd still be here with open arms. So, I said, trying to steady my voice, you didn't come back because you miss me. You came back because you ran out of options. She flinched at that. That's not fair, isn't it? I made a mistake, Emory. A horrible one. I thought I knew what I wanted, but you didn't make a mistake, I interrupted. You made a choice. Over and over again. You chose him while I was here folding your laundry and trying to remember how you like your tea. You lied. You humiliated me. You left me with a post-it note and a missing couch. And now I'm supposed to believe that just because he rejected you, we're suddenly worth salvaging. She looked like I slapped her, but I didn't take it back. I came back because I realized, she said quietly, that the person I left was the only one who ever actually saw me. That sentence settled in the air between us like a confession with nowhere to land. I wanted to believe her. God, some part of me still did. But another part, the part that remembered sitting on the floor eating cereal from the box while crying into my hoodie, wanted to burn that belief to the ground. I stood there, trembling from something I couldn't name. Fear? Rage? Grief? You're not staying, I said finally. You can't. But I have nowhere else, she started. That's not my fault, I snapped. It was never supposed to be. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. Something I didn't even know I was capable of until that exact moment. I turned around and walked back upstairs. And for the first time since she left, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel weak. But I did feel something else. Terrified. Because I knew this wasn't the last conversation. Not even close. The door didn't slam. I half expected it to, but it didn't. When I went upstairs and left her down there, Callie didn't come chasing after me. She didn't knock on the bedroom door or cry outside it like some cliché scene out of a romance film. Instead, the house fell into this eerie, unnatural stillness. Like even the walls didn't know what to say anymore. I stayed up in bed again, eyes open, trying to make sense of what she said. She came back not out of love, not even regret, but because the man she threw her life at, the man she replaced me with, had discarded her the moment it stopped being fun. And now here she was, crawling back to the place she once sneered at, calling it too quiet and too safe. It was the kind of justice that should have felt satisfying, but it didn't. It just made me feel more pathetic. Like I'd become some emotional spare tire she kept in the trunk for emergencies. Around 6:30 a.m., I finally drifted off. Just for an hour, maybe. But when I opened my eyes again, the light coming in through the curtains was different. It was that sharp, guilty morning light that makes everything look too real. I reached over for my phone, mostly out of habit, and there it was, a message I wasn't expecting. Not from Callie. Not from anyone I even recognized. It was from a number with no name attached. Just 3 words. She lied again. My heart stopped. I sat up so fast I nearly dropped the phone. My hands were already clammy, mind spinning. I thought maybe it was a scam or a prank. But curiosity always wins when your life is hanging by a thread, and I responded before I could talk myself out of it. Who is this? Almost immediately, the reply came through. Her affair wasn't just emotional. I thought you should know. That was it. No signature. No proof. Just a gut punch that left me staring at the screen like it might start bleeding. And then, they sent a photo. At first, I hesitated. My finger hovered over the thumbnail, shaking. I didn't want to see it. I really didn't. But some self-destructive part of me, the part that still needed to be sure I wasn't going crazy, clicked it anyway. It was grainy. Taken from across a parking lot, through a windshield maybe. But it was clear enough. There she was, Callie, with her arms around a man who was definitely not me. They were kissing. Not the kind of polite, dry kiss you give an old flame in a moment of weakness. This was something else. Something deeper. Her hands were in his hair. His fingers were under her coat. Her face looked happy, and it was dated. 7 weeks ago. That meant it happened before she left me. Before the post-it note. Before she ever said the word useless. I dropped the phone like it burned me. My stomach turned over, and I stumbled into the bathroom, splashed cold water on my face like it could somehow scrub away what I just saw. But it didn't. That image was burned into me now, branded into my memory with a searing finality that made the past month feel like a lie stacked on another lie. She had already chosen him. She hadn't fallen for him after she left. She left because she was already his. And now she was in my house, sleeping on my floor, sipping my tea, asking to be seen again like she hadn't spent months erasing me with every kiss she gave to someone else behind my back. I stormed downstairs. She was still there, curled under a blanket I didn't remember leaving out for her. Her eyes were open. She must have heard me. But she didn't sit up. She didn't speak first. Was it only one time? I asked. My voice cracked mid-sentence, despite every effort to hold it together. She blinked. What are you talking about? You know exactly what I'm talking about. I held up the phone. This. When was this taken? Her face drained of color. Who sent you that? I don't know. Maybe someone with a conscience. But that's not what matters. What matters is that you were already with him. Before you left, you were already gone. She sat up slowly, pulling the blanket around her like armor. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. But it did, Callie. It did. And now you're here acting like you miss me. When really, you just got replaced. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She just looked down at the floor again. And for the first time since she came back, she looked defeated. Not fragile. Not guilty. Just hollow. I didn't know how to come back, she said. So I lied. I told myself I could fix it if I just said the right things. But I was wrong. It didn't feel like an apology. It felt like a closing argument. I backed away slowly, my pulse hammering so loud I could barely hear her anymore. And in that moment, I realized something truly devastating. I had spent all these weeks grieving someone who never existed. And now, I wasn't sure what to do with the pieces she left behind. I didn't say another word to her that morning. I didn't have it in me. I left the house entirely, just grabbed my jacket and keys, and drove with no destination. I passed the gas station we used to stop at for coffee on the way to her parents' house. Past the bookstore where I once bought her that overpriced hardback she read half of and never touched again. Every corner of this town had fingerprints of her all over it. And now that I knew what she'd been doing before she left, those memories didn't feel warm anymore. They felt contaminated. I parked at the edge of a hiking trail we never once used. I just needed air. Somewhere with no couch, no tea, no walls that remembered her voice. I sat on a bench beneath the trees and opened my phone again, looking at the message. She lied again. 3 words that detonated everything I had left. I clicked on the number, tapped info, and tried to trace anything. An area code, a clue. Nothing. Just a random string of digits. But something about it felt intentional. I sat there for over an hour, rereading the thread, trying to calm my nerves. That's when it hit me. How did this person know what I didn't? How did they have a picture? How did they know exactly when to send it? Unless they weren't a stranger. I opened my contacts and scrolled. I hadn't talked to many people since the split. My brother, Jonah, had checked in a few times. A guy from work had sent me a meme I didn't respond to. But then I saw it. Camille, Callie's co-worker. They weren't best friends or anything, but I remembered her from the holiday party 2 years ago. She wore this obnoxious sequin jacket and made fun of my dad energy because I offered to help wash dishes. Camille had always watched me weirdly. Not flirtatiously, more like she pitied me. She once told me, in passing, "You're too soft for someone like Callie," while sipping wine out of a solo cup. I laughed it off at the time. I tapped her contact and stared at the message button. Should I even ask? Before I could change my mind, I texted, "Camille, did you send me the photo?" No response for several minutes. Then suddenly, "She never deserved you." I blinked at the screen. "So it was you." She replied immediately, "Yes, you needed to know the full truth. I couldn't watch her walk back into your life and start the cycle again." "Why now?" I typed. "Why not earlier?" Her next reply came slower, like she was thinking carefully. "Because I didn't think she'd dare come back. I figured she'd disappear and let you rebuild. But when she showed up at your house last night, she called me." My chest tightened. "She what?" "She called me in the driveway. Said she was scared. Said she wanted to fix things with you. I asked her if she was going to tell you everything. She said she'd ease you into it." That's when I sent the photo. I didn't know what to feel anymore. Betrayal? Gratitude? Shock. Camille had been watching this unravel from the sidelines and somehow saw more clearly than I did from inside it. And just when I thought I couldn't take another blow, she sent one last message. It wasn't just Trent. I froze. I stared at those 4 words for what felt like hours. Everything in me wanted to throw the phone into the trees and walk away from this whole mess forever. But I couldn't. I had to know. What do you mean? I typed. The dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. There was someone before him. Just once. Maybe twice. A guy from the hospital. It started around the time she told you she needed space to grow. My head spun. That was nearly a year ago. That was back when I was still planning anniversary dinners and reading self-help books on how to be a better listener. That was back when I still believed we were worth saving. I didn't text Camille again. I couldn't. I sat there until the sun was nearly down, cold wind brushing past me, feeling like the biggest joke the world ever played on itself. Callie hadn't just betrayed me with one man. She had been leaving me, piece by piece, for months, maybe years. And I had applauded her for being honest about needing space. I drove home on autopilot. She was still there, sitting in the same spot like the house had frozen her. She stood up when I walked in, opened her mouth to say something, but I held up a hand. Don't, I said. I know. She blinked. Know what? I shook my head. Not just about Trent. The other guy? The one from the hospital. Around the time you said you needed to recenter yourself. The way her expression cracked, it was like watching glass shatter in slow motion. She didn't deny it. She didn't even cry. She just sat back down, folded in on herself, and said, I didn't think you'd find out. And that was the moment I realized. This wasn't about what she did anymore. It was about who I had become to tolerate it. I didn't sleep that night either. Not a second. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. Only this time, there wasn't grief curling around my ribs. There wasn't heartbreak. There was something colder. A kind of clarity so sharp it hurt to hold on to. I didn't cry. I didn't scream into a pillow. I just lay there, realizing I had spent years being slowly erased by a woman who smiled at me while she did it. When the sun finally rose, it didn't feel like a new day. It felt like a funeral. And I was the only one who showed up. I came downstairs and found her in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing one of my old shirts, like the past year hadn't happened. She was making toast. Toast. Like we were a couple again. Like we were having a lazy Saturday morning after sleeping in and ignoring our alarms. You want some? She asked softly, without turning around. That nearly made me laugh. After all that, the cheating, the lying, the crying in my driveway, the half-truths, the staged apologies, she wanted to know if I wanted toast. No, I said. I want you to tell me why you did it. She turned then, slowly, and for the first time since she came back, she didn't try to play sweet or broken. She just looked tired, like someone who finally ran out of stories to tell. You want the real reason? She asked. No sugarcoating. No metaphors. Just the truth. She leaned against the counter, arms folded. Fine. I'll give it to you. She didn't blink when she said it. I left because I couldn't stand that you still loved me. The words hit harder than any confession could have. I blinked, confused. What? You love me too much. Too purely. You looked at me like I was still the person I used to be. Like I deserved everything. And every time I looked at you, I saw what I wasn't. I saw the version of myself I destroyed years ago. And being near you made me hate myself. I didn't move. I barely breathed. She wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She was just stating it like a fact. Like a diagnosis she had rehearsed. I didn't cheat on you because you were bad to me. I cheated because I couldn't live with how good you still were. I needed chaos. I needed something to drown out the shame. Trent was loud and shallow and full of ego. He didn't care about me the way you did, and that made it easier. My throat felt raw. So you punished me for not giving up on you? She nodded. Yes. Because I gave up on me a long time ago. And every time you looked at me like I was still worth it, it reminded me I wasn't. There it was. Not just the truth, but the final truth. The one that didn't make anything better, but made everything make sense. I had loved her like a lighthouse, steady, patient, trying to guide her home. But she wasn't looking for a way back. She was swimming out to sea with rocks in her pockets, trying to forget there was ever dry land to begin with. And now, standing here in my kitchen, with toast burning behind her and sunlight turning her hair gold again like it used to, I realized something terrifying. She would destroy anyone who tried to love her the way I did. Even me. Especially me. I can't do this anymore, I said. My voice was hoarse, but calm. You need to go. She didn't argue. She didn't beg. She just nodded, turned off the toaster, and walked toward the stairs. But before she reached them, she paused. Her voice was barely a whisper. Do you think I was ever a good person? That question hit harder than all the others. And I don't know why I said what I did, but I looked her in the eyes and answered honestly. I think you were. But I also think you hated that person long before I had the chance to save her. She didn't reply. Just nodded slowly, lips pressed together, and climbed the stairs. I stood there, heart racing, wondering if I was finally free. But what I didn't know was that she wasn't just packing. She was about to leave something behind. Something that would reopen everything I thought I'd closed. She didn't slam the door when she left. That surprised me. It was almost silent, just the soft clink of the lock turning behind her, the gentle shuffle of her suitcase rolling across the concrete. I didn't go to the window. I didn't watch her walk away. I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the 2 pieces of untouched toast growing cold on the counter. That's how I knew it was really over this time. But the quiet that followed didn't feel like the hollow kind. It didn't feel like the days after she first left, when silence was a scream and every room felt like it had a hole in the floor. No, this silence felt peaceful, not because everything had been fixed, but because there was nothing left to pretend about anymore. The masks were off. The final words had been said, and she was gone, not like a ghost that might return, but like a storm that had finally passed. I spent that morning cleaning. It wasn't dramatic. I didn't burn pictures or smash plates. I just tidied. I threw out the tea bag she used, folded the blanket she slept under. I put her last coffee mug in the back of the cupboard and didn't think twice about it. When I found her necklace on the bathroom counter, I didn't cry. I just wrapped it in tissue, put it in an envelope, and set it near the door. She could pick it up later or not. It didn't matter. But later that day, while folding the laundry, yes, my laundry, I found something in the dryer that made me pause. It wasn't hers. It was a small, handwritten note on the back of an old receipt. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. The ink was smudged like she'd written it fast, maybe even last minute. It said, "You were never useless. I just didn't know how to be loved by someone like you. Please don't stop being kind. The world needs more of that." I held the note for a long time, not because I wanted her back, not because it changed what she'd done, but because, somehow, it helped me forgive myself for believing I wasn't enough. That evening, my brother Jonah called. He'd been texting me for weeks, checking in. This time, I picked up. "Hey, man," he said. "You alive?" "Barely," I joked. "You sound better." "I think I am." He invited me out for burgers, nothing heavy. Just a night to be around someone who didn't see me as broken. I almost said no. Almost made another excuse to sit alone and replay everything again. But something in me shifted. I realized I didn't want to keep living like a man paused in the middle of a bad chapter. So I said yes. We laughed over greasy fries and bad music. I told him bits and pieces of what happened, and he didn't judge. He just listened, offered terrible advice, and said I could crash at his place anytime. That was enough. Over the next few weeks, something strange started happening. Life got quieter, but in the good way. The kind of quiet that feels earned. I started walking every morning. I deleted old photos not out of spite, but because I didn't need them anymore. I unfollowed her on everything, blocked her number, and didn't feel tempted to undo it. I wasn't angry. I wasn't grieving. I was finally healing. One afternoon, I was in the park, sitting on a bench, sipping coffee, watching a golden retriever try to catch its own tail, when a woman sat down next to me. She smiled politely. We didn't speak right away. She had a book in her lap, and I recognized the title. It was one Callie had once pretended to read. "I actually finished that one," I said, surprising myself. She looked up. "Oh yeah? Did it end well?" I smiled for real this time. "Yeah, actually it did." She laughed. Just a small, honest laugh. And we started talking. Nothing heavy. Nothing rushed. Her name was Nadine, and I don't know where it's going. But I do know this. I'm not broken anymore. I'm just beginning again.